Is it possible to make something like real espresso using an Aeropress? Something all syrupy and concentrated, like this. How do you get a small amount of water to extract this much goodness from the coffee without the extreme pressure of an espresso machine? This requires a little ingenuity, very little effort, and zero expense. Anyone with an Aeropress and a decent grinder can do this right now, today. There's also a second level of Aeropress espresso, which I'll show you. It requires you to spend a total of $10 US and put a little effort into modding the gadget. The results are slightly better and more consistent. I'm going to demonstrate both methods, the easy one and the effortless one. So sit back and get ready to pull espresso out of your Aeropress. Coming up here on the Wired Gourmet, not the ultimate, not the penultimate, or even the anti-penultimate or pre-anti-penultimate, but the pro-pre-anti-penultimate Aeropress technique.
Oh my God.
It's like a miracle.
First, let's do it the effortless way. I like this approach because a stock Aeropress is all you need. I'm grinding right in the espresso range. And yes, a burr grinder is the way to go. A blade grinder will not work. Although you might get away with using pre-ground coffee, but I haven't investigated that. I'm going to use a small amount of water, 55 milliliters, along with 18 grams of dry coffee, which should absorb about 20 milliliters of liquid. I'm expecting to get around 32 milliliters of brewed coffee out of an 18-gram dose for a ratio of roughly 1:2. With a close ratio like this, you'll want to use water that's not long off the boil, around 96 degrees Celsius or 205 degrees Fahrenheit. We won't develop anything close to the pressure of an espresso machine, so we'll have to increase the contact time to ensure proper extraction. This works nicely if you stretch it out for 60 to 90 seconds. Now for the secret. Tap the Aeropress firmly against the bench or your hand to settle the coffee, then place 2 paper filters on top to distribute the water evenly. You can cut the filters to size by folding them and using a circular template. These top filters serve only to disperse the water, so you can rinse and reuse them numerous times. I've enjoyed consistently better performance when using a fresh, dry, lower filter for each shot. Pour the water gently, aiming for the center. A gooseneck kettle is very helpful here. Now press firmly and steadily. You're going to feel more resistance than usual. This is the kind of stance you should adopt. You just have to practice dialing in your grind and ratio and learning to get a 60 to 90 second shot. You can slow down, you can even rest, but you must never stop pressing entirely or you'll create a partial vacuum under the piston which will unseat the puck and spoil the brew. Keep at least some pressure on it all of the time. I use a metal jug because glass and ceramic are too brittle for me to feel comfortable bearing down like this. And here's the result, 32 milliliters on the nose. This is espresso, minus the foam. Aesthetically, it's a failure, but the flavor and texture are there. Once you get a coffee dialed in, you'll amaze yourself. The puck is nicely formed. It feels solid and shows even saturation with no evidence of channeling. This setup is wonderfully portable. There are so-called travel-friendly espresso makers, but they're still heavy and bulky. I've already shown you the secrets to getting something like espresso out of a mocha pot, which is small and light, but you need a stove or a hot plate for that. This is a real travel companion. All you need is a nice hand grinder and some hot water, which you can get just about anywhere. But wait, there's more. We can make this coffee even better. For that, we need an inexpensive shower screen, and we'll have to do a couple of simple mods. This is a water distribution screen for the Cafelat robot. Some of you already have one. It works beautifully with the Aeropress and costs a mere $10. It is slightly oversized, however, so we'll have to file it. You can mod it with power tools as well, which is how I did it, but I won't demonstrate that because if you have the tools and experience, you've already figured it out. The rest of us are better off doing it by hand. The robot basket's inside diameter is 57.8 millimeters. The screen diameter is 57.4 millimeters, giving us about 0.4 millimeters clearance. I'll want the same amount of clearance with the Aeropress. Keep the screen perpendicular to the file. Swipe it about a quarter turn, then reposition it by 1/8 of a turn so that your strokes overlap. The metal is quite hard, so be patient. You needn't do it all at once. Take your time and work it down gradually until it fits your Aeropress. Finish the edge with a little 600 or 800 grit sandpaper. The Aeropress barrel's inside diameter is 56.92 millimeters, so I'm going to want the modded shower screen to be around 56.88 millimeters when I'm done. That will give me a 0.4 millimeter clearance. However, the screen's clearance in the robot basket has gone from 0.4 millimeters to around 0.92 millimeters, slightly more than twice what it was, but that will not cause a problem, as I'll demonstrate later. If you don't have a robot handy, you can order a screen from the Cafelat store for $10. I've put a link in the description. If you have got a robot, you might still consider doing this for a travel gadget. You're making perfectly good espresso, but the robot isn't the best companion on the road. Now that the screen fits, I'll drill a 6 millimeter hole in the plunger to accommodate the little silicone handle. Or you can remove the silicone part in lieu of drilling. I prefer to keep it in place for convenience. Now you can use the plunger and the screen together to tamp the coffee for even better results. First, settle the coffee as before and make sure that the screen is perpendicular to the barrel. Use about 2 kilograms or 5 pounds of force. Rotate it a quarter turn and press again. You can do this on a scale once or twice to get a feel for it. Fit the piston onto the plunger, add water, and press your coffee as before, looking for a 60 to 90 second extraction. Again, I would start with an 18-gram dose and 55 milliliters of 96-degree water for a 32 milliliter shot. You can tweak it from there. Now let's look at the puck. As you can see, it's beautifully symmetrical. It cleaves crisply and it's saturated throughout with no hint of channeling. It's as good as anything from an espresso maker costing thousands of dollars. The coffee tastes a little better now. If you're handy and have a few basic tools, I would say the results are worth the extra bother. But if not, the 2 paper filter method of distributing water also makes a fine cup of coffee. Before I go, let me verify that the modded screen still works in the robot. I took off only 0.5 millimeter, so I'll be surprised if there's an issue. I like to start with a gentle push until the coffee appears, then ramp up the pressure. There's a bit of reaction time lag here, but you can see that under normal pressure, the basket surface populates immediately and evenly, meaning that there are no flow issues with the slightly undersized screen. The coffee looks as beautiful as ever, and it tastes heavenly. So if you have a robot, and do this mod carefully, you won't need a separate screen for the Aeropress. Well, that's about all for today. Coming up next, I have a nice hand grinder to show you, plus a Hario surprise. And I think I'll revisit the Specialita now that I've been using it daily for around 6 months. I'll let you know how well we've been getting along together, so keep in touch. Cheers!